Part of the magic of filmmaking is undeniably the musical score. Composer Christophe Beck's soundtrack for the animated movie Frozen continues to break records. Welcome back to Rise on Screen. Composing for films is a unique skill, and composing for the world's biggest blockbusters takes even greater skill. I recently sat down with Beck, who scored this week's sci-fi blockbuster Edge of Tomorrow. I asked him what actually goes into scoring a film.
Film scoring is really about storytelling through music. And the process involves watching a scene without music and trying to figure out, of course, with the collaboration of the filmmakers, what point of view the music should take, what emotion you're trying to get across to help tell the story. And then the part that is the most mysterious to me, to sit down and actually come up with music to express that emotion.
Now, how early in the process do you usually get to begin on a film?
Every film is different.
Okay.
For example, when I did Frozen, I was brought in very early, and I got to work on that over a 9-month period.
Okay.
Edge of Tomorrow was also a very long period of time to work on, about 6 months, but typically it's more 2 or 3 months.
Wow. All right. Now, well, you've had such amazing success where you've got films like the #1 R-rated comedy of all time, The Hangover, Frozen, #1 animated film of all time. When you have those huge successes, do you get pigeonholed? Because you seem very diverse, and I don't know if that happens to you anymore.
Well, thank you for characterizing my filmography as diverse. It's actually very comedy heavy, and excuse me, that pigeonholing is very much a common practice in Hollywood.
Yes, it is.
And your first hit really defines you. And in my case, that was, I don't know if you remember a cheerleading comedy from a while back called Bring It On.
Bring It On, yes.
That was my first real film score that people actually went out and saw. It was a kind of a sleeper hit. And from that point forward, there was a lot of youth-oriented comedies.
Okay.
I do about 5 or 6 film scores a year, and up until a few years ago, probably 4 of those every year were comedies, of course, including the Hangover movies.
Well, now let me ask you, with Edge of Tomorrow, tell me a little bit about what went into it, what it was like working with Doug Liman, and how involved is Tom Cruise even maybe in the process?
Certainly. It was definitely very challenging and difficult. Over a 6-month period, that's a long time to work on one score.
Sure.
But ultimately very rewarding. This was my first time working with Doug, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Sure,
he's an incredibly smart guy, but he's extremely demanding. You know, he demands originality, and any kind of music that sounds like traditional film music, he reacts negatively to. So there was quite a bit of a process of sort of getting the movie music out of my system and arriving at a more minimal electronic-based type of a sound that was a little bit more forward-thinking and a little bit more modern in approach.
Well, it's interesting because Doug Liman's a director who directed this film who often plays with time.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And what is that like for you as a composer? Because you have to jump from time periods, you have to move along with this type of cutting.
Well, like I said earlier, it's really storytelling through music. So a lot of times I'm not thinking quite that literally with the music. And I'm just thinking about, okay, what is Bill Cage, the character Tom Cruise plays in the movie, what is he thinking? What is he feeling at that moment? And how can I express that with music?
Okay.
At the same time, knowing that the story was about repetition, I did get a chance to play with some ideas musically to mimic that. I think I have a couple of pieces where I build a melody 1 note at a time. You hear 1 note, and then you hear the next note added, and then you hear the 3rd note added in succession. And that kind of mirrors the journey that the main character takes. He starts out a complete novice on the battlefield, and he doesn't last very long. But through each successive repetition, he gets more and more proficient.
Well, it's interesting because there are points in the film where the editing and what's going on, the action on screen goes, and then there's a point where the music starts to take over. And now it's carrying you. Now, tell me about that. Is that something that you both came to? Was that always there in the editing, or does that kind of come as a combo?
It kind of grows organically. There's especially with Doug, there's a lot of experimentation. Do we want music here? Do we not want music here? And there was, in fact, quite a bit of music that I wrote that didn't get end up used in the film. So that's really Doug's guiding hand sort of directing that whole journey from the beginning of the movie, where music doesn't play as big a role, toward the end, where it really takes over.
Well, you started out doing TV, doing Buffy, which is like got to be a grind where you're doing original music all the time. And you've only been really doing soundtracks for about 14 years. So for you now, what's still unexplored? What's still new territory for you? And what do you look forward to doing?
I look forward one day to maybe writing a symphony or an opera. But in the meantime, I'm having so much fun scoring films that I just want to keep doing it. And I just enjoy working with talented people on good films, regardless of the genre. I have done a lot of comedies, but I'm happy to do more if the film looks interesting and the people involved look like they'd be fun to work with.
I myself am a huge film score fan, and we'll be right back.
Lots to digest.
Up next, Summer Blockbusters. We all love them. It's what popcorn was made for, and 2014 is chock full of them. We talk with two of our go-to critics about what makes a blockbuster a box office smash. Next, here on Arise on Screen.
This is my path. Spider-Man.
Summer Blockbuster season is here. Hi, I'm Mike Sargent. This is Arise on Screen. We're talking about Summer Blockbusters, and I'm joined in the studio by Jackson Murphy of LightsCameraJackson.com and Justine Brown. How are you both?
Great.
All right, we're going to talk about something we all obviously love, which is Summer Blockbusters. So my first question to both of you, and I'll start with you, Jackson. What's your definition of a summer blockbuster?
It's got to make a lot of money. It's
Okay.
got to have a great impact. It's got to get you excited and pumped, and maybe even in this day and age, an award season contender.
That's high criteria. What about you? How would you define
I
a
can't
blockbuster?
say that better. I really can't. Massive opening, something that gets people excited, has a lot of legs in terms of just the anticipation and build-up, and massive marketing. We all remember
yeah.
Independence Day, the first official
That's
summer
right.
blockbuster, I think, or that coined that phrase.
No, we can go back to the little history of the blockbuster. We'll touch upon that.
Fine.
So my next question is now, I think that we're in the digital age now, and so summer blockbusters have all become about the effects and the spectacle. Now, do you think that that's true? Do you think that's a mistake, as opposed to the story and the characters?
There's a lot there when it comes to the visuals and how much these studios and these filmmakers want to impress us and make us go to the theater for these visual effects. Films like Inception. Films like The Avengers.
And you didn't
Some of
like
them were-
Inception.
Yeah, I thought visually it's stunning, but it confused me way too much, and it was not strong, in my opinion, in the story department. But that's what they try to grab us with, to make us pay our $10, $12.
Okay.
I think there should be more choices, more diversity in terms of the summer blockbusters. There aren't a lot of female leads, and there aren't a lot of films that appeal to older audiences, I don't think. I can go back to probably Born Identity, which was small. It was a high-budget film, but it wasn't all about the special effects. It was really more about the story and the performances.
Okay.
It was kind of a surprise,
All right,
massive
now
hit.
you're leading into my next question, which is, what are your favorite summer blockbusters? Give me your top three, Jackson.
Well, I got to go with Toy Story 3 as one of them. And the other thing
Damn
that
good
works
movie.
so much for summer is that kids are out of school in most of the country, and they get to go to all these big family animated movies, and that's why they do so well. Look at Despicable Me 2. How huge it did last summer.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely.
It took over. So Toy Story 2 would be your top?
Yeah,
all
I
time?
love that. Avengers and also Star Trek Into Darkness. Both Star Trek movies that have come
Okay.
out in the recent years have been some of my favorites. Absolutely.
And for you, top
I'm
three?
going to go back about 10 years ago. There's a film that Steven Spielberg did with Tom Cruise called Minority Report.
Okay.
Doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not one of his bigger movies. Raises some really interesting questions, and again, amazing story. I did mention Born Identity for similar reasons, and I'm going to go Terminator 2.
on my list.
I was not there for it in the theater, but I think rediscovering it later and discovering how massive it was when it did come out. I think, come on, does it get
See,
better
for
than
me,
that?
now, I agree. Now, my top three would be Terminator 2. I saw that in the theater. The Return of the Jedi. You know, I was a kid, but I saw that. I was, not Return of the Jedi, actually. Empire Strikes Back is the better movie. So Empire Strikes Back, I was there. I waited online overnight. I was, you know, loving it.
Wow.
And probably The Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
You know, because
Okay.
at that time, you know, Star Trek, the first movie was not that good. The second movie, it just blew people. It was one of those great. Now, this summer, we have a lot of blockbusters coming up. So I have to know, some may or may not have come out when this airs, but what are you looking forward to, Jackson?
Looking forward to Spider-Man, Godzilla, X-Men, How to Train Your Dragon 2, the next Planet of the Apes movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. There's a lot
that.
to look forward to. Get On Up, too, which is about James Brown with Chadwick Boseman.
Right.
That looks really good. Jersey Boys as well. Could be a couple good musicals. Clint Eastwood behind that one.
Clint Eastwood, I know. The
Yeah.
musical, that's interesting. And what are you
Yes,
looking forward
I
to?
agree.
Justine?
Wow, I agree with all of those. Again, totally sold it. I'm interested to see where the new Planet of the Apes film will go, considering the way the last one
The
ended.
first one was so surprisingly good. After the
was.
Tim Burton mess,
I
thought that
I
this,
hear ya.
you know, and I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan.
So I'm curious, yeah, and I'm curious to see how the new Spider-Man turns out. I mean, again, it's a lot of sequels and reboots and things like that. So hopefully there'll be a few surprise sleeper hits and smaller movies that we didn't see coming. That
Well, I'm looking
get
forward to
rolled
the X-Men. Definitely looking forward to Spider-Man.
All of them coming together, yes.
And there are a few out there that I'm interested in. I'm interested to see Gone Girl.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
hoping that that's good.
On time, you boys showed up.
Right.
know, and-
Expendables 3.
Expendables 3. Expendables 2 bordered on genius, in my opinion. I was just, I couldn't believe how
They're
good that
great
was.
drive-in movies.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Good
been going to this-
popcorn movies.
That's true.
Which, see, to me, when you want to order popcorn, that's a blockbuster.
Yes.
Because you're
Okay.
sitting there with the bag and
Yes.
you're just into it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing that I miss as a film critic. I miss going to see a movie with the intended audience. Because film critics are more like this.
Yes.
You know, and so you see a movie that audience would be screaming their heads off, and the critic might go,
Well, that's
So-
why a lot of screenings now, they do kind of incorporate the
Yes, they
fans.
do.
It
Oh, yeah, they bring them
They
in,
do.
yes.
It depends.
depends on when you see it. If
Yeah.
you go to
Right.
the all media, you
The
can't.
last Twilight was a really good example of these stuffy critics sitting with all these twihards going crazy, and I think it worked well. That got better
It
reviews
adds.
than the first
Yes,
few.
it did.
Yeah, because the last Twilight had a great twist at the end.
I was born to be a vampire.
So, Chiara, since you're here with us today, you have to tell me, what is your favorite summer blockbuster?
I think I'll have to dig into the past and choose a classic, Grease.
Grease.
Yes.
Well, that's definitely many women's favorite summer blockbuster. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I'd like to thank you both for being here. But before we go, we have to acknowledge Maya Angelou, who just recently passed, and we couldn't leave without paying our respects. I don't know if you know, she was, among all the other things she did, she was an actress as well. She started out, I think her first piece that she ever did, she was in the original Roots. She was also in John Singleton's Poetic Justice. And then she was just most recently in Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Reunion. So, and that's a
I didn't
comedy.
even realize that.
So I thank you both, and Maya Angelou, you will definitely be missed. So we'll be back next week to talk more movies here on Arise on Screen.